We've been talking about life cycles, a little bit about food chains, food webs, ecosystems. Today I'd like to introduce a new organism, and we are going to be looking at the life cycle of a salmon. I have a story I'd like to read to you today, and the story is called Salmon Stream by Carol Reed Jones, illustrated by Michael S. Medak. This is the stream in the forest. This is the water, clear and cool, that flows in the stream in the forest. This is the deep and shady pool filled with water, clear and cool, that flows in the stream of the forest. This is the nest of rocky gravel far beyond the shady pool filled with water, clear and cool, that flows in the stream of the forest. The eggs of a salmon born to travel hides in the nest of rocky gravel far beyond the shady pool filled with water, clear and cool, that flows in the stream of the forest. What I'd like for you to do is go ahead and take out your blank piece of paper, and you're going to go ahead and draw in the corner of your paper a pool of water and a river. It's in the forest, so we're going to go ahead and add some trees. And what we want to do is add some gravel. And you can do that by just making some little black dots. And this is where the salmon eggs are laid. And we're going to add some little orange dots. And those are the eggs. So we can go ahead and label those eggs. Let's continue. This is the tiny fish that hatched and has its dinner still attached from the egg of a salmon born to travel that hides in the nest of rocky gravel far beyond the shady pool filled with water, clear and cool, that flows in the stream in the forest. So we're going to go ahead and draw a picture of a newly hatched salmon. And we're just going to draw like a fish with just a big bubble here that looks like it's the attached food. And we're going to go ahead and label that baby salmon. It's actually called an elevin, and it's Alevin. Let's put a little eyeball there. And let's continue with the story. This is the trout that tried to catch the tiny fish so newly hatched that has its dinner still attached. The hovering osprey dived to snatch the wily trout that tried to catch the tiny fish so newly hatched that has its dinner still attached. These are the spotted fry that grow and wait for a sign they instinctively know. The rains will tell them when to go. So let's go back to our picture here. And they say another term. It's called fry. And this is the next stage of our salmon. So we're going to make a little bit bigger fish, not too much bigger. They no longer have their food attached, and they have spots. So I want you to think a little bit about, why do you think these fry have spots? And we can talk a little bit about that after we finish the story. And I'm going to go ahead and label these little guys fry. They talk about the rains. So I'm going to go ahead and make a rain cloud. And I'm going to make some rain. It says that they instinctively know The rains will tell them when to go. Let's continue. Traveling down with the current's flow, facing upstream as they go, the smolt pass obstacles great and small, gravelly shallows, a waterfall, through culverts and pipes devised by man, down a fish ladder, on a dam, and to an estuary wide. So let's go back to our picture here. They give us another name. It's called smolt. So this is the next stage of the salmon. They're a bit bigger, and now they're ready to travel. And they're going with the current. So the current is going this way. And they're going to hit an obstacle, and that obstacle is the dam. So we can label that dam. When they get to the dam, the only way for them to make it past the dam and continue on to the estuary is by a system that was devised by man called a fish ladder. So we're going to create here a fish ladder. Okay. And on the other side of the fish ladder, they're going to continue to an estuary. How many of you know what an estuary is? It's really important that they're in the estuary, and they stay in the estuary for some time, and there's a reason they stay there for a while. So I want you to think about, why do you think the smolt stay in the estuary for a little while? Let's continue. Drifting with the ebbing tide, they reach their saltwater home at last, an ocean indescribably vast. So now let's go back to our picture, and we're going to have our smolt make it into the ocean. So we're going to label the ocean. And now they're in the ocean. So they've made it. You've made it to the ocean. They're in the ocean. Again, I'm not the best drawer. So they're in the ocean. The salmon grow for months in the sea, catching fish and swimming free. And there's some pictures here of the coho salmon, chinook, steelhead trout, pink salmon, sockeye, chum, Atlantic salmon. Trying not to become a meal for human, sea lion, orca, or seal until they get the homing urge to gather where river and ocean merge. So we're going to go back up to our drawing, and I want you to write down the word homing. We're just going to put it up here. Homing. Whoops, homing urge. So they gather to where the river and ocean merge. So they're going to come back up this way. Now they're facing in this direction, and they're going to head back to where they came from. And this is their migration. So we can put migration. This is the rain that swells the rivers and sends the message that nature delivers to salmon to send them home to spawn, relentless swimming on and on, up the river with the tide, past the estuary wide. So if we go back to our picture here, our salmon are headed back to the estuary, they're actually going to be a lot bigger, so they're going to be really big. And they're headed back up the fish ladder, going against the current. As you can see, the current is going against them. So here's the current is going this way. And they'll head back to where they were born to spawn. So let's write the word spawn here in the corner. What does spawn mean? Does anybody know what spawn means? And spawn means to go back to lay their eggs, and the males will then fertilize the eggs so that they will then start a new cycle of salmon. Let's continue. Up a fish ladder on a dam, through culverts and pipes devised by man, obeying the voice of instinct's call, they leap a 10-foot waterfall to reach the place where they were born, bruised from the journey, weary and worn. The salmon come home at the end of their lives. They spawn, and each little egg that survives will start the cycle over again. With the coming of the rain, the silver smolt will discover the sea and turn to salmon swimming free, and tiny fish will one day hatch with their dinners still attached. From the eggs of salmon born to travel, that hide in the nest of rocky gravel far beyond the shady pool, filled with water clear and cool that flows in the stream in the forest. So I'd like for you to take a look at the diagram you just made. And as you can see, we have the life cycle of the salmon. They start from the eggs. They have their food attached. They become fry. Then they become smolt. We do not label that. So smolt. They go over the fish ladder into the estuary where they hang out for a little bit. They finally make it into the ocean where they'll stay for months, sometimes even years. They get the urge to come back to spawn, to now lay their eggs. They go back the other direction against the current. So I want you to write current right here, C-U-R-R-E-N-T. And back to that pool where they were born to then lay their eggs and start all over again. They don't really talk about what happens to the salmon, but typically after they've come to smolt, many salmon will then die shortly after. There are some that will return to the ocean one more time to possibly come back again to spawn a second time. So right now what I'd like for you to do is take some time to talk to your partner, talk a little bit about the labels that we just put on the life cycle, homing and spawn, fish ladder, migration, current. And I want you to talk a little bit about what those words mean, make some predictions, and then we'll talk about that shortly.